Chapter 47. Krishna Pleases His Devotees. For days together, Krishna heard from Uddhava all the details of his visit to Vrindavan, of the condition of his father and mother, and of the gopis and the cowherd boys. Lord Krishna was fully satisfied that Uddhava was able to solace them by his instruction and by the message delivered to them. Lord Krishna then decided to go to the house of Kubja, the hunchback woman who had pleased him by offering him sandalwood when he was entering the city of Mathura. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna always tries to please his devotees, and the devotees try to please Krishna. As the devotees always think of Krishna within their hearts, so Krishna always thinks of his devotees within himself. When Kubja was converted into a beautiful society girl, she wanted Krishna to come to her place so that she could try to receive and worship him in her own way. Society girls generally try to satisfy their clients by offering their bodies to the men to enjoy. But this society girl, Kubja, was actually captivated by a lust to satisfy her senses with Krishna. When Krishna desired to go to the house of Kubja, he certainly had no desire for sense gratification. By supplying the sandalwood pulp to Krishna, Kubja had already satisfied his senses. On the plea of her sense gratification, he decided to go to her house, not actually for sense gratification, but to turn her into a pure devotee. Krishna is always served by many thousands of goddesses of fortune. Therefore, he has no need to satisfy his senses by going to a society girl. But as he is kind to everyone, he decided to go there. It is said that the moon does not withhold its shining from the courtyard of a crooked person. Similarly, Krishna's transcendental mercy is never denied to anyone, whether one has rendered service unto him through lust, anger, fear, or pure love. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated that if one wants to serve Krishna and at the same time wants to satisfy his own lusty desires, Krishna will handle it so that the devotee forgets his lusty desire and becomes fully purified and constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. In order to fulfill his past promise, Krishna, along with Uddhava, went to the house of Kubja. When Krishna reached her house, he saw that it was completely decorated in a way to excite the lusty desires of a man. This suggests that there were many nude pictures, on top of which were canopies and flags embroidered with pearl necklaces, along with comfortable beds and cushioned chairs. The rooms were provided with flower garlands and were nicely scented with incense and sprinkled with scented water, and the rooms were illuminated by nice lamps. When Kubja saw that Lord Krishna had come to her house in order to fulfill his promised visit, she immediately got up from the chair to receive him. Accompanied by her many girl friends, she began to talk with him in great respect and honor. After offering him a nice place to sit, she worshipped Lord Krishna in a manner just suitable to her position. Uddhava was similarly received by Kubja and her girlfriends, but he was not on an equal level with Krishna, and he simply sat down on the floor. Without wasting time, as one does in such situations, Krishna entered the bedroom of Kubja. In the meantime, Kubja took her bath and smeared her body with sandalwood pulp. She dressed herself with nice garments, valuable jewelry, ornaments, and flower garlands. Chewing betel nut and other intoxicating eatables and spraying herself with scents, she appeared before Krishna. Her smiling glance and moving eyes were full of feminine bashfulness as she stood gracefully before Lord Krishna, who is known as Madhava, the husband of the goddess of fortune. When Krishna saw that Kubja was hesitating to come before him, he immediately caught hold of her hand, which was decorated with bangles. With great affection, he dragged her beside him and made her sit by his side. Simply by having previously supplied pulp of sandalwood to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, Kubja became free from all sinful reactions and eligible to enjoy with him. She then took Krishna's lotus feet and placed them on her breasts, which were burning with the blazing fire of lust. By smelling the fragrance of Krishna's lotus feet, she immediately became relieved of all lusty desires. She was thus allowed to embrace Krishna with her two arms and thus mitigate her long-cherished desire to have Krishna as a visitor in her house. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that without being freed of all material, sinful reactions, one cannot be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Simply by supplying sandalwood pulp to Krishna, Kubja was thus rewarded. She was not trained to worship Krishna in any other way. Therefore, she wanted to satisfy him by her profession. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord can be worshipped even by one's profession if it is sincerely offered for the pleasure of the Lord. Kubja then told Krishna, "My dear friend, kindly remain with me at least for a few days. Enjoy with me, you and your lotus-eyed friend. I cannot leave you immediately. Please grant my request." As stated in the Vedic versions, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has multipotencies. According to expert opinion, Kubja represents the Purusha Shakti potency of Krishna, just as Srimati Radharani represents his Chit Shakti potency. Although she requested Krishna to remain with her for some days, Krishna politely impressed upon her that it was not possible for him to stay. Krishna visits this material world occasionally, whereas his connection with the spiritual world is eternal. Krishna is always present either in the Vaikuntha planets or in the Goloka Vrindavan planet. The technical term for his presence in the spiritual world is Prakata Lila. After satisfying Kubja with sweet words, Krishna returned to his place along with Uddhava. There was a warning in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna is not very easily worshipped because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the chief among the Vishnu Tattvas. To worship Krishna or have association with him is not a very easy job. Specifically, there is a warning for devotees who are attracted to Krishna through conjugal love. It is not good for them to desire to have sense gratification by direct association with Krishna. Actually, the activities of sense gratification are material. In the spiritual world, there are symptoms like kissing and embracing, but there is no sense gratificatory process as it exists in the material world. This warning is specifically for those known as Sahajya, who take it for granted that Krishna is an ordinary human being. They desire to enjoy sex life with him in a perverted way. In a spiritual relationship, sense gratification is most insignificant. Anyone who desires a relationship of perverted sense gratification with Krishna must be considered to be less intelligent. His mentality requires to be reformed. After a while, Krishna fulfilled his promise to visit Akrura at his house. Akrura was in relationship with Krishna as his servitor, and Krishna wanted to get some service from him. He went there accompanied by both Lord Balaram and Uddhava. When Krishna, Balaram, and Uddhava were approaching the house of Akrura, Akrura came forward, embraced Uddhava, and offered respectful obeisances, bowing down before Lord Krishna and Balaram. Krishna, Balaram, and Uddhava offered him obeisances in turn and were offered appropriate sitting places by Akrura. When all were comfortably seated, Akrura washed their feet and sprinkled the water on his head. Then he offered nice flowers and sandalwood pulp in regular worship. All three of them became very satisfied by the behavior of Akrura. Akrura then bowed down before Krishna, putting his head on the ground. Then, keeping Krishna's lotus feet on his lap, Akrura began to gently massage them. When Akrura was fully satisfied in the presence of Krishna and Balaram, his eyes became filled with tears of love for Krishna, and he began to offer his prayers as follows. My dear Lord Krishna, it is very kind of you to have killed Kamsa and his associates. you have delivered the whole family of the Yadu dynasty from the greatest calamity. Your saving of the great Yadu dynasty will always be remembered by them. My dear Lord Krishna and Balaram, you are the original personality from whom everything has emanated. You are the original cause of all causes. You have inconceivable energy, and you are all-pervasive. But for yourself, there is no other cause and effect, gross or subtle. You are the Supreme Brahman realized by the study of the Vedas. By your inconceivable energy, you are actually visible before us. You create this cosmic manifestation by your own potencies, and you enter into it yourself. As the 5 material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, are distributed in everything manifested by different kinds of bodies, so you alone enter into different varieties of bodies created by your own energy. You enter the body as the individual soul as well as independently as the supersoul. The material body is created by your inferior energy. The living entities, individual souls, are part and parcel of you, and the supersoul is your localized representation. This material body, the living entity, and the supersoul constitute an individual living being, but originally they are all different energies of the one Supreme Lord. In the material world, you are creating, maintaining, and dissolving the whole manifestation by interaction of 3 qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. You are not implicated by the activities of those material qualities because your supreme knowledge is never overcome, as is the case with the individual living entity. As the Supreme Lord enters into this material creation, and thus the creation, maintenance, and destruction are going on in their due course, so the part and parcel living entity enters the material elements and has his material body created for him. The difference between the living entity and the Lord is that the living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and has the tendency to be overcome by the interactions of material qualities. Krishna, the Param Brahman, or the Supreme Brahman, being always situated in full knowledge, is never overcome by such activities. Therefore, Krishna's name is Achyuta, meaning he who never falls down. Krishna's knowledge of spiritual identity is never overcome by material action, whereas the identity of the minute part and parcel living entities is prone to be overcome by material action. The individual living entities are eternally part and parcel of God. As minute sparks of the original fire, Krishna, they have the tendency to become extinguished. Akrura continued, the less intelligent class of men misunderstand your transcendental form to be also made of material energy. That concept is not at all applicable to you. Actually, you are all spiritual, and there is no difference between you and your body. Because of this, there is no question of your being conditioned or liberated. You are ever liberated in any condition of life. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, only the fools and rascals consider you to be an ordinary man. To consider your lordship to be one of us, conditioned by the material nature, is a mistake due to our imperfect knowledge. When people deviate from the original knowledge of the Vedas, they try to identify the ordinary living entities with your lordship. Your lordship has appeared on this earth in your original form in order to reestablish the real knowledge that the living entities are neither one with nor equal to the Supreme God. My dear Lord, you are always situated in uncontaminated goodness, Shuddha Sattva. Your appearance is necessary to reestablish actual Vedic knowledge, as opposed to the atheistic philosophy which tries to establish that God and the living entities are one and the same. My dear Lord Krishna, this time you have appeared in the home of Vasudeva as his son, along with your plenary expansion, Sri Balaram. Your mission is to kill all the atheistic royal families, along with their huge military strength. You have advented yourself to minimize the overburden of the world, and in order to fulfill this mission, you have glorified the dynasty of Yadu, appearing in the family as one of its members. My dear Lord, today my home has become purified by your presence. I have become the most fortunate person in the world. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipable by all different kinds of demigods, pitras, living entities, kings, and emperors, and who is the supersoul of everything, has come into my home. The water of his lotus feet is purifying the three worlds, and now he has kindly come to my place. Who is there in the three worlds among factually learned men who will not take shelter of your lotus feet and surrender unto you? Who, knowing well that no one can be as affectionate as you are to your devotees, is so foolish that he will decline to become your devotee? Throughout the Vedic literature, it is declared that you are the dearmost friend of every living entity. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Suridam Sarvabhutanam. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, completely capable of fulfilling the desires of your devotees. You are the real friend of everyone. In spite of giving yourself to your devotees, you are never depleted of your original potency. Your potency neither decreases nor increases in volume. My dear Lord, it is very difficult for even the great mystic yogis and demigods to ascertain your movement. You cannot be approached by them, and yet, out of your causeless mercy, you have kindly consented to come to my home. This is the most auspicious moment in the journey of my material existence. By your grace only, I can just understand that my home, my wife, my children, and my worldly possessions are all different bonds to material existence. Please cut the knot and save me from this entanglement of false society, friendship, and love. Lord Sri Krishna was very pleased by Akrura's offering of prayers. His smile was captivating Akrura more and more. The Lord replied to him as follows: My dear Akrura, in spite of your submissiveness, I consider you to be my superior, on the level with my father and teacher and most well-wishing friend. You are, therefore, worshipable by me, and since you are my uncle, I am always to be protected by you. I desire to be maintained by you because I am one of your own children. Apart from this filial relationship, you are always to be worshipped. Anyone who desires good fortune must offer his respectful obeisances unto personalities like you. You are more than the demigods. People go to worship the demigods when they are in need of some sense gratification. The demigods offer benediction to their devotees after being worshipped by them. But a devotee like Akrura is always ready to offer the greatest benediction to the people. A saintly person or devotee is free to offer benediction to everyone, whereas the demigods can offer benediction only after being worshipped. One can take advantage of the place of pilgrimage only after going there. By worshiping the particular demigod, it takes a long time for fulfillment of the desire. But saintly persons like you, my dear Akrura, can immediately fulfill all the desires of the devotees. My dear Akrura, you are always our friend and well-wisher. You are always ready to act for our welfare. Kindly, therefore, go to Hastinapur and see what arrangement has been made for the Pandavas. Krishna was very anxious to know about the sons of Pandu, because at a very young age they had lost their father. Being very friendly to his devotees, Krishna was anxious to know about them, and therefore he deputed Akrura to go to Hastinapur and get information of the real situation. Krishna continued to say, I have heard that after the death of King Pandu, his young sons, Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev, along with their widowed mother, have come under the charge of Dhritarashtra, who is to look after them as their guardian. But I have also heard that Dhritarashtra is not only blind from birth, but also blind in his affection for his cruel son, Duryodhana. The 5 Pandavas are the sons of King Pandu, but Dhritarashtra, due to his plans and designs, is not favorably disposed towards the Pandavas. Kindly go there and study how Dhritarashtra is dealing with the Pandavas. On receipt of your report, I shall consider how to favor the Pandavas. In this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, ordered Akrura to go to Hastinapur, and then he returned home, accompanied by Balaram and Uddhava. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 47th chapter of Krishna. Krishna pleases his devotees.